Good day. Welcome to Dutchess Talk Radio. Dutchess Talk Radio. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Tompkins Mahopac Bank, by Robeson Oil. At Robeson Oil, they are the house that service built. By Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, by White Plains Hospital, and by Michael Labriola Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. Welcome to the Cup of Joe political show, where we are joined today by New York State Assemblymember Didi Barrett. Didi Barrett represents the 106th District. She is a Democrat. Her district ranges pretty wide and far. Headquartered in Dutchess in Poughkeepsie, ranges down to the Fishkill Wappingers area, back over to Milan, to Pine Plains, and pretty much everywhere in between. In Columbia County, she is headquartered in the city of Hudson. Didi Barrett, welcome to Dutchess Talk Radio. The most recent legislative session came to an end a few days ago. Do you have any free time on your hands as a result of this session now having come to an end?
Well, hello, John. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me. I just want to clarify, my district does not actually include Wappinger and Fishkill. The town of Poughkeepsie is the most southern part. And then it goes over to the Connecticut border with cutouts here and there. And then straight up to along the Connecticut and Massachusetts border. And then up the most northern part is the part of the village of Chatham that's in Ghent, not Chatham, and then it goes over to the river again with the odd cutout here and there.
You kind of cut across in zigzag. That's why I said wide-ranging. I know you do things in Fishkill and Wappingers too, so you're involved in the area.
Well, I have part of the village of Wappingers Falls. That's the part, but I don't actually have any of Fishkill, though always happy to visit that charming and historic village.
Mm-hmm. And when we say Wappingers, we also mean Wappingers Falls, too, because people, I think, kind of mix up the two, that a lot of people don't realize there is a Wappingers and a Wappingers Falls. If you say Wappingers, it's kind of all-inclusive.
Well, that's what's interesting is my district, and you talked about, traveling around. The southern part of my district is the part of the village of Wappingers Falls that's in Poughkeepsie, but not in Wappinger. And the northern part is the part of the village of Chatham that's in Ghent, but not in Chatham. So go figure. It seems
like you need a map yourself to, I guess, lock it all in, right? Because it is such a wide-ranging area.
It's a beautiful area. I love my district, and I'm very honored to be representing all of these wonderful communities and municipalities.
Now, most people look at the session coming to an end as legislators having some downtime, which I think that's a misnomer.
I think that's completely a misrepresentation of what we do. No, we are, I think technically we're supposed to be a part-time legislature, but I don't know where that part-time is. I am constantly working, and this is really just more time in the district. I have two district offices, one in Poughkeepsie and one in Hudson. And so it does give me an opportunity to spend a little bit more time in the district offices, but it really, and we will continue working on legislation. We won't be in session, but, looking at bills that we passed, looking at bills that didn't pass, really working on policy issues. One of the things I really want to, be doing a deeper dive into is, some of the issues that I've worked with as chair of Veterans Affairs. Want to really understand a little bit more about some of the complex housing opportunities in the state. So, I've got a lot on my agenda for this off session and my son's wedding this upcoming weekend.
Oh, congratulations on that. So,
Thank you.
You are busy, no doubt about that. As you walk around the district through the years, in Dutchess, in Columbia, what do people talk to you most about? What do they want to see get done?
I think there's been a range. These almost 10 years that I've been in office, have seen, a lot of issues. We kind of were just coming out of a recession. When I was first elected, there were really prominent issues in different parts of the community dealing, environmental issues and job issues and agricultural issues, and some of those, have really changed. When I was first elected, there was very little focus, though I kept talking about it, in the agricultural economy in Dutchess County particularly. And I remember my first State of the County address that I sat in on, watching our county executive talk about everything in the world except farming, but there he was standing in front of the Dutchess County seal, which has a sheaf of wheat and a plow. And my district at that time, and still, is very rural, and agriculture had been a very prominent part of the county and the region's economy since the days of Alexander Hamilton. I mean, since the founding days of our country.
Since the beginning of time.
Pretty much. And then, but yet it wasn't necessarily a focus of the economic development and other forces in county government. So, that's something that we've really seen bloom and blossom and grow, and the desire for locally grown food, and the desire for knowing where your food is coming from and what you put on your family's table has really grown in those years. But there's other issues as well. We've seen a lot of work being done in cleaning up the Hudson River. We've had focus on in my case, working in mental health. That's been a huge priority that we've, especially coming out of this pandemic. But even before, we saw conversations about that. In every time I visited a school building in either of my two counties, the superintendent or the building supervisor, the principal would say, our number one issue is mental health. We have kids dealing with anxiety and depression, even in the elementary school, even in the kindergartens, and so that's been a huge issue that continues to grow. I think it's a diverse issue. It's a diverse region and a diverse district, and there are just a lot of really important and complex human issues that are, that are part of people's lives that I hear about all the time. Obviously, the economy and jobs is always there, but in our region, we're also looking at attracting younger people so that we have the workforces to grow the economy, and to have the volunteers for our volunteer fire districts and our school districts and our library boards and all the things that make our region so very special. But you need to have the people there to support that, that lifestyle here in our communities.
During the just concluded legislative session in Albany, what were the key issues that were discussed and worked on? And obviously, a number of bills came down and were passed. What were the key bills that made it to the floor and got approved?
Well, for me, as I'm just completing my term as chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus, and I remain the chair of the Assembly's Veterans Affairs Committee. And I had some major priorities in that. We actually enabled the siting of the first New York State-run Veterans Cemetery. Last year, 2 years ago, we had passed a really important bill called Restoration of Honor, which assured that New York State veterans who were given other than honorable discharge because of don't ask, don't tell, or PTSD, or military sexual trauma, or traumatic brain injury, had a pathway to their New York State benefits. And we expanded that this year to make sure that the diagnoses were that would make them eligible didn't have to just come from a VA, but from any mental health professional. And we passed a bill that will be helpful in our region to resurrect a historic barn rehabilitation tax credit, which was a great program that helped our rural and agrarian areas, and was eliminated in 2018. And we reinstituted that. And we, to continue my conversation about mental health, we passed a New York State constitutional amendment that would create parity between mental and physical health in the New York State Constitution, which currently doesn't even acknowledge mental health as any kind of priority. So those were some of my key issues. But of course, as a conference and as a session as a whole, we really did some amazing work in the budget. We put record funding into our school districts. We addressed housing, and we addressed the impacts of the COVID crisis on our communities, and put resources in place to help address that. We did a lot of really great work, and I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish. And it was hard working partly remotely. We started to come back over the course of the last couple of months, but a lot of people didn't feel ready to do that. And obviously, as the increase in vaccines helped people feel more protected, more and more people were willing to come back into session. But we continued to do a lot of work remotely and on Zoom, which was had its pros and had its cons.
You also worked to develop a merit scholarship program for veterans too.
Absolutely, that was really a key accomplishment this year. This is a bill that actually our bill was a combination of other things that other people had been trying to pass for several decades, and the way that the law is currently written, merit scholarships, which stands for Military Enhanced Recognition, Incentive, and Tribute Scholarships. So these are scholarships for the dependents of Gold Star families and servicemen members who became severely or permanently disabled, or were killed, or were missing in action in combat zones, or during military training for duty in a combat zone. And our new bill removed the date, and also made anybody who had those conditions and their dependents eligible, because our feeling is that anybody who's in the service is preparing for combat, and some of these kind of arbitrary framework that says, well, it wasn't in a combat zone when you were there, but then it became a combat zone, but you were prepared for it. I think that we owe our military families, who have already paid a huge price just by the nature of them being part of this group, the respect to support their dependents to be able to pursue their dreams educationally. And we were very, very happy to be able to do this, particularly for a constituent of ours in Columbia County, whose daughter was ineligible because of the years that he that he was injured, and now will be as soon as the governor signs this bill.
Dutchess and Columbia County State Legislator, Assemblymember Didi Barrett represents the 106th District here on Dutchess Talk Radio. I'm John Marino. Didi Barrett, this state has come a long way. This region has come a long way in trying to get out of the COVID pandemic, to get life back to normal as quickly as possible, or get back as much of what was normal as quickly and as best as possible. With all the reopening going on, are we going too fast, too slow? Do we need to speed it up, be more cautious, or is it just about right?
I think it's just about right, because it is what it is. And, I think we've all, everybody has worked as hard as they could. And, we've had a very challenging year, as you have said, across the state, across the country, across the world. And, I think, I'm the kind of person who really likes to think of things, if not half full versus half empty, but to really look that, assume that people are doing the best that they can. I do think that that's going on. That's the case. And, we've struggled with isolation and economic hardship, and, loss of everybody's felt some kind of loss this year, whether you lost a family member or or a loved one actually, or just, weren't able to be with them and missed occasions and missed milestones in your friends and family's lives. And I think that, that coming out of that has been a challenge for everyone. So I think everyone's working, making decisions in an unknown environment. And I really do think that that we all deserve credit rather than blame for where we are right now, and continuing to do that. I mean, nobody's perfect, and there are going to be missteps and mistakes, but I think we're being thoughtful and strategic, and really trying to support the state and our communities in the best way possible. I think, for example, our Nourish New York program, which would help our farmers and food relief organizations, was kind of a brilliant idea that we should have been doing before, but it came out of this crisis. And I was, very proud to support that. And, I think that we're going to see things come out of this that we learned that will make us all stronger and better as well.
Mm-hmm. Are you happy with vaccine rollout, the way vaccines have been distributed? And on top of that, Governor Cuomo a few days ago said, once the state gets to 70% vaccine compliance, that we can pretty much reopen back to where we were before the pandemic hit. Is that number 70% too low from your talk with health officials and different people you speak to, or should it be higher? Some say 80, 85%.
I think this is, again, it's a situation that we are, learning as we go. I think that 70% is a reasonable threshold, but I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that, we may have to change, after we'll try that. I know there's some variants out now that are dangerous and scary. We still have a significant part of our population are kids under 12 who aren't vaccinated yet. If we see a change, I mean, that's why it's so important to be continuing to monitor the data, to be keeping track of what else is going on, to listen to the experts and the medical community. And if we need to reverse course, we reverse course. If we need to adjust course, we adjust course. But I think that it's naive to think that that once we make a plan that's exactly what we have to stick to at this point. I think we've learned a lot in this past year that that this isn't something that's completely in our control. And it's easy when you're on the outside to take shots at people making decisions and people, trying to do the right thing. But I think that by and large, New York State, knock on wood, has been, very fortunate, and that's come from, some good decision making, and I think we're all benefiting from that.
You talked about mental health. During the legislative session, marijuana legalization, recreational use finally came to pass in New York State. Do you think this bill was put together the right way?
I actually do. This bill has been being discussed for a couple of years, several years. And I do feel during the course of that time that it wasn't ready for prime time. And I do feel like in the end, a lot of thought and a lot of conversation and a lot of input was part of getting to this particular bill. I mean, there's certainly the social justice piece which we addressed a couple of years ago, was really important to a lot of my colleagues, and it was important to make that take that step before we were ready to address the full legalization of adult use. And I think now, one of the issues that I was very concerned about was the impact on farmers and the agricultural community in New York State. I didn't want we have a lot more small and family farms, small and mid-sized family farms in New York State. And I didn't really want the large agribusiness or foreign investors to come and take that over, that local farms, if they wanted to participate, needed to be given a path forward, and that the communities that were most impacted by some of the criminal implications and the aspects of who was arrested first for marijuana use and and possession also benefited. So I think in the end that a lot of work was done to make this a thoughtful and a fair and an equitable legislation, and I think it will again, nothing is necessarily perfect in the first pass, and if there's adjustments that need to be made, we can address that. But I think a lot of thought and effort went into trying to do this in as equitably and as strategically as possible.
Gun violence. Was anything done to tackle gun violence, to make strides in that area? Gun control, understanding that in Dutchess and Columbia counties, the situation that we see with growing gun violence may not be the same as it is further downstate, like in New York City, on Long Island, and in Westchester.
Well, I think sadly we are seeing that. In the city of Hudson, which I represent, and I don't represent the city of Poughkeepsie, but I it's right. My district surrounds it. I think we are seeing gun violence tragically in cities across and urban areas across our country. And we did pass several bills in the last few days of the session that certainly are attempting to address these issues. Again, I think that mental health and funding for mental health and focus on those issues were not given as much priority as I would have liked to see. I think that that's when you're looking at widespread violence the way that we have, certainly part of it is access to illegal guns, which are mostly coming from out of state, not the law-abiding gun owners in the state of New York, but
how
elsewhere.
do we stop those guns from coming here?
Well, there has to be a national program. I think that's what we've known for forever, and we can't get Congress to do anything. That is the issue here, and New York can do a certain amount, and again, as you say, we have certainly a large Second Amendment community here in the Hudson Valley, but also just sportsmen and women who have long family histories of being involved in hunting and shooting and fishing, and we want to make sure that that law-abiding gun owners are not being penalized, and at the same time start addressing what is really a horrible epidemic of gun violence. And that's that again, the gun violence is certainly we see it in the urban areas, but when we talk about suicide and we talk about other kinds of abuse of guns, it's equally tragic, and those are tied in with mental health and people's feelings of isolation and despair, and coming out of this year kind of in quarantine. People are acting out in ways that that if they had some other outlets and they had an opportunity to talk about their feelings, they might respond differently.
Should schools be fully reopened come September, or is this another wait and see scenario?
I think we should be planning on schools reopening. Again, if we have to reverse course, and I certainly hope that we have a summer of healthy activities and people feeling like we are continuing, to heal physically and and emotionally and economically. I certainly think that following the CDC guidelines and the Department of Health guidelines, that we should be preparing too. And I personally think that a certain amount of decision making should be left to the school districts. I think different communities have different kinds of facilities, and some have more space and some have less space, and some have more outdoor space, and I think that those conversations should be happening between the state level and the local level.
Final days of the session, Governor Cuomo signed a bill allowing the state to tap into a fund to be able to pay legal expenses connected to all the ongoing investigations into different allegations against him about how he handled nursing homes in the early days of the pandemic, alleged sex harassment, whether or not he misused state resources to help get family members and friends tested for COVID, and state resources where they misused with regards to the book deal. Was this a risky move by the governor to give this okay? Because if I were the one being investigated, I might not sign my Hancock on the dotted line saying, yeah, go ahead, pay for an investigation into me.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think I would either. I got to be honest. I don't. I heard about this, but I was not focused on it. We were working till 1:00 on Thursday, night, 4:00 on Friday, 4 a.m. Friday morning. I had a bunch of bills I was trying to focus on. So I got to be honest. I didn't, I don't know what the specifics of that are, but,
you think they're just trying to be transparent as possible?
Absolutely. And I think we all benefit from that. And I think that, that sunshine is the best disinfectant, and that, that if we have nothing to hide, then we shouldn't be looking like we're hiding anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's move into some of your key initiatives that you've worked on recently and through the years. Didi Barrett represents the 106th Assembly District, covering a good portion of Dutchess County into Columbia County as well. Assemblymember Didi Barrett, you've worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic to help local businesses throughout your district and around this area and region. How have businesses responded to that?
Well, I think we're starting to see that recovery. I mean, we put together within weeks of the shutdown a business continuity fund here in Columbia County with Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation, which helped a number of our businesses. I mean, most initially hit was hospitality sector, which is big, and in the Hudson Valley, tourism and hospitality, and then the related agriculture piece is very much part of who we are here in the region. So that helped, but we've still lost a number of small businesses, and many of them were able to kind of reinvent themselves. Then the federal money made a huge difference, and we passed in the budget $800 million for a small business recovery grant program, and $25 million for the New York Restaurant Resiliency Grant program, and $40 million for a new arts recovery grant program. And all of this, I think has helped many of these businesses. But this was very, very tough on a lot of businesses. I think in the Hudson Valley, because of our proximity to some of the bigger population areas, New York City or Albany or Boston, we benefited from being able to attract day trippers or short visits, and people, some of our restaurants and shops, and especially the picturesque villages and hamlets were, it was an opportunity in the good weather to go and visit a farm store or a farm to table restaurant, or some park that was open, and go hiking. I mean, I think we were luckier than some areas, and and I think we'll continue to look at ways that we can help our small businesses. They are absolutely, as is said, the backbone of our economy, and they are what make our our region special. I mean, I think we all cherish not just the natural beauty here, but the sense of community that's so much part of our Hudson Valley identity.
Expanding broadband, another critical program you have been part of.
Yes, well, we've got money in the state budget to address this, and we also have some help from our federal government in the rescue fund looking at this, and then the the next phase of the federal funding as well. I mean, this is a no-brainer. We absolutely have to get full and robust coverage throughout the Hudson Valley, or we're basically cutting ourselves off from the opportunity to have small local businesses, at-home businesses, all of these things that are such a natural part of what would make our economy grow. I mean, broadband is now at this point, certainly this year, it's tied in with education, it's tied in with telemedicine and healthcare, it's tied in with economic development. It's fundamental to homeland security. We really need to get this infrastructure in, and in our area, it's the cost of service. It's certainly the cost of making it affordable, which the governor put a program in the budget to do that. But we don't have the infrastructure in place. We really do need to have all of the last mile homes included in all of the communities that thought they could get by on something just above dial-up, realizing that when there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 family members trying to use the household internet at the same time, that they don't even begin to have adequate bandwidth or program coverage.
It's also a key for education too, because if we ever have to go back to what we've done for the past year and do a lot of remote learning, I think every kid in every community across this state should have access to broadband and should be given, if the family cannot financially afford what they need to make sure their children are educated the right way, that broadband has to be there for them in one way, shape, or form so they can compete with everybody else.
Absolutely. And it's like I said, it's not just the affordability. We don't have the infrastructure yet. It's like putting in, trains. It's like putting in highways. It's like putting in, the telephone lines. We need to get that infrastructure in across the state of New York before it's too late, because that's what we build the rest of it off of.
Mm-hmm. You talked about your work with the Veterans Affair Committee's work, and a lot more that you've done, things like the Merit Scholarship Program and the Veterans Cemetery, among other initiatives you've been able to accomplish. Summer is here. It's Lyme disease season. We don't hear as much, to me, about Lyme disease like we heard when it first came on the scene and really hit us like a brick back in the late 80s, early 90s. Is Lyme disease today as big of a problem now as it was 30, 35 years ago?
More so. It is more so. And, we've done a lot of, yes, absolutely. The research that's being done on ticks is finding that their ticks are carrying more and different pathogens that are, that really mean, that carry more dangerous diseases. And it's not just Lyme. It's a number of other illnesses that are, that are really pretty devastating. And I think we know a little bit more about how to try to protect ourselves, but we aren't doing enough in research. We aren't doing enough in New York State. There's a really great program in out of Syracuse at Upstate Medical, which is testing ticks, and anybody who wants to send, pulls off a tick and sends it to them, and helps them with their research identify where these ticks are being found, but also what illnesses are being carried by them. That's helping, but every year we try to get money in the state budget for more education and research and awareness campaigns, and we're not being able to do it, and I'm really grateful for this Upstate Medical program, because that is that's New York State's biggest engagement at this point, and they're doing a great job.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about open space preservation, the environment, and all of your work with that too. What is the future of groups like the 4-H Club or the Hudson River Clearwater Sloop Revival, et cetera, groups like that, and all they've done throughout the decades in this county? How critical is their work?
I think they're essential. I mean, I am a huge advocate of, community and engagement, and, whatever the issue or the hook is, for young people. I think 4-H and Future Farmers of America, which are, which is on the rise, are so important and, and so appealing. This is the environment that we live in. And I love that kids are interested in agricultural education and in understanding the environment and understanding where our food comes from and healthy eating. But, also to your question before about guns, one of the biggest 4-H activities is shooting sports. And there's a very robust program in Dutchess County on those shooting sports. And they're also teaching young people civics as part of that. But I think our recognizing the beauty and the importance of our environment here, and the delicate balance that we have to maintain to achieve our climate goals through solar and wind and other renewable sources of energy and get off fossil fuels, but also to engage in the importance of our farmland and how agriculture really is, is kind of a win-win when it comes to climate, because carbon farming, a lot of the work that I've done in resilient agriculture and sustainable agriculture really shows us how farming, that we said has earlier, that goes back to the beginning of this region, our beautiful soils, our healthy soils, are really our partner in making sure that carbon gets taken out of the atmosphere and stored in the soil, where it actually does tremendous good. It makes the soil more resilient to weather changes. It makes it more productive, so that farmers really see a bigger output from their harvests, and it takes this carbon out of the atmosphere where we know it's doing bad things. So I think all the things that we can do to support farming and agriculture are really important for the future of our Hudson Valley region.
Bottom line, let's keep this Hudson Valley region, Dutchess, Columbia, the lower and mid Hudson County, Hudson Valley region. Let's keep it all picturesque and bucolic.
Picturesque and bucolic and sustainable economically and environmentally. So, I think we don't want to be, preserved in wax, but we want to be vital, and we want to attract new families here, and we want to, but that's part of our, of our economy is the beauty and the farmland. So I think it's, I like to say sustainable environmentally and economically. And
the wineries too, right?
Oh, and the craft distilleries. That's some of my favorites.
There we go. All right. Now, Didi Barrett, your contact information for anyone who might like to get in touch with you, your website, phone number, email, etc.
Well, it's our email is Barrett, BarrettD, at nyassembly.gov. And our, if you go to the New York State Assembly, our website is part of that, the list. You can just click on my name. And we're always happy to meet with people. We're happy to talk to people. Our Poughkeepsie office phone number is 845-454-1703. And we have, as I said, we have an office in Poughkeepsie on Raymond Avenue, and then we have an office in Hudson, as well as our Albany office.
Didi Barrett, we thank you for joining us here on Dutchess Talk Radio, and special thanks to Gunnar for getting us together here today, your trusty assistant.
Thank you, Gunnar.
Thank you, Gunnar. I know he's off there on the side. I can see you glancing over at him from time to time as you glance. My guess is that's Gunnar standing at the ready there. Didi Barrett, we thank you. Didi represents the...
John, thanks so much. Pleasure talking with you. Stay well.
You too. Didi represents portions of Dutchess and Columbia County, the 106th Assembly District. Assemblymember Didi Barrett here on Dutchess Talk Radio, the Cup of Joe political show, made possible by Sharc Creative. They produce us, and presented by Robeson Oil, the house that service built Tompkins Mahopac Bank, Hightower, Westchester, managing your wealth through a fiduciary standard, White Plains Hospital, and Michael Labriola Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. Catch all of our Dutchess Orange, Westchester, Rockland, also Putnam and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative, YouTube.